So welcome to Bunny Designs. This is a live show with live people. It's Live Thursday. It's recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm working in mythomorphia. And this is the dragon, the lion page. It looks a bit like Alfie the King Charles. But it's the dragon. I'm using a little plastic palette, little thin cheapy plastic palette, but it does have it's opaque and I like that, and I've scratched a little bit of colour from my markers. So these are the Winsor & Newton colour watercolour markers, and I've got the set of 12 because when I bought the set of 6 separately I realised that I could have had the set of 12. So we've got lemon yellow, cadmium red, Elysian crimson, and then we don't have a French ultramarine or an ultramarine, but we did have a dioxazine violet and a cerulean blue. Now those are my 6 colours in this set. So if you mix half of cerulean blue, which is the very cold blue here, and half of the dioxazine purple, you will get a blue purple, so you'll get a French ultramarine. Then this set's got Prussian blue, sap green, hooker's green, yellow ochre, burnt umber and black, ivory black. I'm working with number 1 and number 2 graduate riggers from De La Rowney. I like those two. And then the small one is my 10-0 Art Master Pearl series 55, and that gives me 3 paintbrushes, a large, a medium and a small. Now when they're wet, drawn back slowly and twisted to a point, they make a nice set. Now I'm using these watercolors as a watercoloring, which is using a damp brush and a small amount of color and manipulating it with a barely damp brush, and that gives you a watercolor effect. And when I perfected it, I called it watercoloring. So basically you're doing watercolor, but you're doing it in a color book on an ordinary page, using a rigger and a tablespoon of water. So I've just taken my cadmium red and the bullet end. This is the bullet end, sorry, this is the brush end, this is the bullet end, so that's like a normally point marker, and this is a brush tip, so you can hear that just brushes. It'll dry like a watercolor and it will stay there. And then I've got my cadmium yellow, so that's my orangey yellow, not my cold yellow. And I want an orange, so I'm taking the number 1 brush and just mushing them together to give me an orange. So I've got orange on the tip, and that's a barely damp brush. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. Now you want to be comfortable, and if you manipulate this, what should happen is it will get paler and paler and paler. So you will have a watercolor effect, but in fact you're using a barely damp brush. It hasn't gone through and it won't buckle your page if it's a small area. So we wet the brush, we draw it back over a baby wipe so it's barely damp, we pick up some colour, and then we do the same thing. And if you do a full watercolor page, photocopy page, you'll probably be able to judge how much colour you need, how damp the brush needs to be, so you can get a watercolor effect. So at that side it's stronger and the top's lighter. Now I've actually got the wrong, I use a small amount. Normally if it's clean, a jam jar lid or a little pot, you want to get the brush well in and then we're using the baby wipe to draw backwards and twist, and that leaves a point and a barely damp brush, and that's the driest way to work. So we pick up some colour and then manipulate it. Now really we should go up to down, but never mind. So manipulate the colour across and you should end up with a really nice soft watercolour effect. So if I put this here, I'm dunking and drawing it back, and that could be a cleaner pot, but it will be fine. And this is a really nice quiet way to work. There's no hair dryers going off, there's no buckling of your pages. You do really want to go from light to dark, and you get that lovely watercolour effect. So we've got like a light on here, and then we can twist that across. And if you want to be darker, you can go over this a bit later if you want, but I think I should have used maybe the number 2 brush here. So really I'm at the wrong angle. You want to be comfortable, but it meant turning everything round. So, but I think I've got a really nice effect. Now I will let that dry, and then I will just darken that one up a little bit. So not only is it rounded that way, but it's rounded that way. Suzanne says she hears a boy. Yes, he sat right next to me. Little Baldy, here he is. Don't jump up there, Alfie. This side, come here then. We'll have a quick Alfie cam. Come here, Alfie. Suzanne needs her fix. Here, there's a good boy. There's a good boy. So here's our baby boy who's been clipped by yours truly. So he's a bit hit and miss, but he feels so much better for that, don't you? This is Arnold, and this is the Chinese lion. He looks like a Chinese lion. You're grunting. You can just sit like that all day and go to sleep because he just wants to be snuggled. You want your eyes doing a gungy boy, aren't you? But I cut all the gunge up under here because he's always getting knotty, and all under here where his collar was. So we've had a bit of a shave. So we were a bit uneven, but it was our first time with the clippers, and he was so good because normally he's always in the doghouse, but he was a good boy. And I did the top of his paws, but I couldn't get underneath, but he'd had enough by then. So he needs to get all his paws done. Now he's going to sleep. There he goes. He says, "You stop stroking me, Mummy." So there's our quick Alfie cam. I think I'll get better the second time I do it, but go sit down then because I need to swizzle and I don't want to catch your feet. But he's only half the boy he was. I think everybody must have thought we were. I'm going to swap to a slightly bigger brush. This is number 2 because it's a bigger space, and really I'm going to do this, which I shouldn't do with this book. But really you need to be at this angle, and then you have to turn it round and do this. And I've just bought a little cutting mat which actually pivots, so that should be okay. And I still got my colours here, So wet the brush, and this is the number 2, it's slightly bigger. Pick up a bit of yellow and a bit of red, but I don't want it up here, I've just got it at the end. Now if you want to have a practice first, it's always a good idea to have a piece of photocopy paper. Always a good idea. I just licked my fingers after I've been touching my dog. That's not good. Now I've been talking, so you'll realise that that's now gone dry. It's not so bad. So you can't really talk. You dunk, you twist, you draw back, you pick the colour up, and then you colour. Now these are quite pale colours. I wanted some paler colours, but you can be as strong or as pale as you want to be. And bearing in mind, this is an orange that I've made by a yellow, so it's normally 50-50. So again, you've got to work, and if you have you don't have to go side to side. You want to create a lovely watercolour effect. So this one was a little bit redder, this one was more red than yellow. So again, the rigger is diluting the colour, so you have a natural, it's almost like the chameleon pens. This is how I invented this, it's a watercolour effect, and you can see the shine of the actual water drying almost instantly. So again, we start dark at the bottom, and then we have that lovely watercolour effect, and we do want to be a little bit darker on that far side. And sometimes don't be tempted to do what I just tried, because it won't work. So if we darker this side, we can be darker on that side. So we've made it rounded that way and rounded that way. So what we need to do now is to turn that completely around. Now I've just unfortunately got everything the wrong way around on my desk, so apologies. I will move the camera. So I now need to go backwards. I just need to make sure I've got some light, because it's come evening now, and this is when we get shadows in the UK, so apologies for the light. So dunking the water brush, twisting to a baby white, twisting to a point, picking up those. Now you can mix the colours together. If you want to mix them, you can mix them together beforehand. Mix all your colours, and they can dry because it's a watercolour. One thing I don't do on these thinner pages is put the colour actually on the book, because these are professional watercolours and they're very, very strong. So what you want to do is to judge the size of the area you want the watercolour effect. You need to judge how much colour to pick up. Sorry about that, that's the bunny alarm. So I think I've got a bit too much colour on that one, so I'm going to go this way here. Because I want this to be the lightest. So pick up a bit of colour. And just like the chameleon pens, you just keep going and going and going. But instead of getting darker and darker, we're getting paler and paler. So when we turn that round, we have that beautiful light effect. And we haven't done anything. We haven't had to get messy. We haven't had to do hardly anything. I'm going to do the bottom section of this. And I've used 3 or 4 scribbles of the marker pen, which again I find really, really fantastic. And sorry about the shadow. It's an awful reason I have a shadow. I think I might bring that darker, purely because it's under there. So this is when you start to think of light and shadows and things. And one thing you've got to remember is not to do what I've just done. You've got to dunk, and you've got to have a fresh brush for each fresh area, because it's only a barely damp brush, and that means that as soon as you start, it's drying. I don't know if the light, you may see the light shine, but by the time I've stroked across, it's dried. So it's very quick, and it's very, very quick. Now I'm quite pleased that because I've mixed my yellow orange myself, they're all slightly different. So I'm just going to do this one next. Now you can see that I've mixed that orange and red. So what I'm going to do is take the red, the brush tip, just 3 little strokes, the cadmium yellow, and I'm not going to put it here because it'll go yellow. I want to put it here because it'll go orange. 3 little strokes, that's it. And I love the fact that hopefully these are going to last a while. So again, push this. If you want the orange to be exactly the same tone, just mix a little bit more. So pick up the colour. And we always have, if you pick up a lot of colour, you'll have a lesser watercolour effect, so it won't be as light to dark if you pick up slightly less. You get a lovely wash, and yet that's dry. And that's just what you need. This is a colour page. It's an ordinary book. If you were using watercolour paper, you would want to wet the paper first and really kind of make it wet. But we don't. We don't want that. We need just a barely damp brush. Pick up a little bit of colour. And then blend that together, so that's a definite rounded. Now slightly less colour because we've got slightly less. Oopsie, I'm not going to add anything there, are we? Now normally I wouldn't do that because you ruin your page, so that is definitely how not to do that. Because if you notice now, it's gone through because I did it too many times. But it's fine, it's a colour book page, it's fine. I seem to have got I've got a thingy on now. Better. So I've got some yellow left. Sorry about the moving about. I now need to do these. Now I want these to be kind of solid because it'll prove the others made of thinner paper. So and probably find these are darker as well. Now these have got a pattern on which the others didn't have, so now once this is dried, there's no reason why you can't go back in if you want to do a little bit of something. But one thing you really don't want to do is go back in it at the moment. The idea of this is it's just simple and it's stress-free. That's what we're trying to aim for. And I shouldn't really do that with my colour book page, but it's fine. So I need a little bit more. I think I need a bit more orange. I might not need a bit more orange. I'm going to use the .10 damp brush, and then I'm not really looking for a watercolour effect from this. I think I'm just going to kind of colour these in a bit. We can always go back in later and put a bit of a shadow, but again, I wouldn't do that for a while. This page has been damp, it's been rubbed, it now needs to sit. Even though it was only barely damp, it does not want any more water on there at all. And I love the fact that I've nearly used all that. I'm going for a slightly bigger brush. I'm going for number 1. Because, again, the one thing you don't want to be doing is rubbing too much. So we'll get all this colour together. We'll make the orange twist, and then just... It still is only barely damp. It's not very wet. And we can just fill those in. And what we can do later is, as I say, go back in and just put a little bit of a shadow in a bit later. It doesn't stay wet too long because this is the colour page. But I love the fact that you can get a lovely watercolour effect on an ordinary piece of paper. Now the Kerby rosanes are a little bit thicker than ordinary, but they're not that thick. And I seem to have got a natural little highlight there, so I'm quite pleased with that. We've got some tassels. I do have a little bit of orange left, so I'll pick up a bit of that orange, and I really just need to get a little bit of colour in there for the moment. I can always go back in and put a shadow later. I just want to get that in. If I do it very pale and it needs to be darker, that's good. We haven't ruined it. I'm not sure if the tassels are gold. I've actually done them just a pearly version, but maybe the tassels will be gold. But again, I shouldn't really be touching that because although I've got a shadow in there, I don't really want to do that. And as you can see, that's all dried, and I'm just picking up that last bit, so that's going to be very pale, but it is still just that colour, and I can just about get there. So we've got some really nice shadows there. I'm just going to have to do something with this light. Sorry guys, apologies for the light. I don't know which one's doing it. I think it's because it's the time of day. It just hates this time of day. I must have caught a bit of colour there from underneath, but never mind. So we've got some clouds here. Now the one thing you can't do in this colour book is touch watercolour and then wash it out, because it's too strong. This is pure professional watercolour, far too strong. It will go straight through. So I kind of like the Prussian blue, so I'm going to have a bit of a look at the Prussian blue, and we'll take some water, and again we'll just have a look. So it's okay, but it's not as dark as I want. So there's two things you can do. You can add a brown to that, but actually I think I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red. Now I do know that orange is the complementary colour, but this is an orangey red, and as you can see it's going a bit purple, but not too much. That's almost a Payne's grey. If it was orange, so what we can do is put a little bit of yellow there. So what we need to do is to make that an orange and then mix it, and now we've got a cold grey. And if we put more blue, we've got our indigo. So we've taken our Prussian blue and we've made a warm purple grey by adding the yellow, so that made an orange. We've made a cold grey, and then putting orange with the Prussian blue, we've made that gorgeous grey blue, which is a very dark Prussian indigo blue. Indigo blue can be a grey blue. It's a grey blue. So the other way we can do it, if we didn't want to do that, we could take our Prussian blue. Not sure what Alfie's doing, sorry guys. And we can put a touch of, where's it gone? There. Just see what a touch of burnt umber does. So because the burnt umber isn't quite as dark, we've got some blue greens, but I think I like that one better because it's got there's a little bit of orange in the brown, you see, but what we want so now we've got a darker grey, but I want it a little bit bluey. I want a blue grey, and this is just imagining actually adding a touch of water to that. So I would think that's about the same when we blew it out a bit. We've gone about it a different way, so there's all sorts of things. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne says she missed me last week. Yeah, we were in Ireland last week having a good time, hence the big art haul and book haul that we did. So I kind of like these, but you can play about with your greys, and for goodness sake you don't want black. I've not touched black, it's there somewhere. I don't know where it went, but it's there somewhere. But I don't do black. I can show you, I don't know where it's gone actually. I don't know where. Sure, black's in there somewhere. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Ah, there it is. So here's black. So again, let's get black out then and have a look. There's our black. Now lamp black, sorry, this is ivory black. Ivory black isn't as black as lamp black. So if you see lamp black, you see this one's a grey black. If you see lamp black, that's the black, that's jet black. I don't normally add water to it, but I will do. So you can see that's watered down. So that's near that one there. You see? Almost identical. So it's a lot easier, and it's a bit warmer, that one, slightly nicer. Now obviously this is photocopy paper. It's not designed to mix colours on, but it will show you on a white background. So I've made this blue-grey. I actually want it a little bit greyer. So to dull blue down, we want orange. So I'm going to make the cadmium red and the cadmium yellow. Clean the brush. Mix this together to get the orange. And then just put a little bit of that here. You see what that's done? It's changed it. Maybe changed it too much, so we'll mix all that together. We've got that blue back again. So that's almost, I think, if we put a bit more orange in it, it's getting colder, you see. It's getting warmer because you're putting orange in it. Now you don't want to put red in it, but I like it kind of cold, because that's what I like for my clouds. So I'll just do this one cloud here. So you can make thousands of greys. For goodness sake, don't buy any greys, you don't need it, and don't use black, you don't need it. So I want a touch of that because we're after this watercolour effect. And remember, we don't want to work that wet because you will mess up your colour page. So we're using a damp brush. We're not colour mixing now, we're just taking a little bit of dampness. If we take too much, you can see that's shiny, it's not drying yet. So we want to just get that to dry, because your pages will buckle, especially with these larger spaces. And again, we can have a nice little watercolour effect if we want to make these clouds. And it may buckle a little bit, but it's dry. So a damp brush, and we'll just do that. Right, back. Sorry guys, Alfie's having a moment. Alfie, thank you, good boy. Behave, thank you, good boy. Oh, hi Barb, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Sorry guys, I'm just concentrating on what I'm doing. So I quite like that. It's a greeny grey cloud. It's completely different to what you get out of a tube, and I like that idea that I have a grey on my page that probably nobody else will have. So and you can see, I can see it shiny, and then I can see it dry in front of my very eyes. And again, there's something quite nice about that, because that's just what you want. You see it damp, instantly it's gone. And that will make sure that your page will not crinkle and it won't go through, but you've got a lovely watercolour effect. Let me have a look at what else we want to do. I think he's got green eyes. So we have a sap green, and we have, there's a sap green, and I love the fact that this is all you do. There's no tubes. I can't get the tops off tubes of paint anymore. You just snap the top on and snap it on. So I'm going to put that underneath that because it might be a bit dirty. I'm going to use half and half. So I've got half hooker's green and half sap green. And again, I'm going to use a touch of water because I want to show what we've got. So that's quite a pea green. So I'll show you one green. So that was one green. That's sap green. And that one's hooker's green. And what we've done is we've mixed these together. Now they will dry, but they'll stay here because they're professional watercolours. So that's the one in the middle. And actually that's nicer as an eye. So I think I'm just going to do this because I've got it on the brush and I don't want to waste it. He's now got his eye colour. I don't know if you can see the green eye. And I can use that for other things. I can also use it to dull down a red. So this particular, and because of this, I can turn that over and it's dry. I'm just going to go here. Now, another trick we have. I don't know where I put the water now. I put some water somewhere. Oh, there it is. Again, I'm not normally used to using a big pot of water, so we now want a red. So we've got Elysian Crimson, and I do this quite a lot actually. So Elysian Crimson, again, three or four little soft strokes. We don't want to break the end. We want the brush end. 3 little soft strokes. That's it. 3 or 4. And you will see, because these are professional watercolours, you'll see a difference in different colours of different pigments, because different pigments react differently. The Elysian Crimson is transparent, but you can see, so it goes on thinner, whereas the cad is a bit more opaque. So we'll take a touch of that and just show you that that's the Elysian Crimson, and then this one is the cadmium red. I kind of like that, but now I have got a wet brush. Oh, I don't want a wet brush. Mix these together. So this is just as they come out. Now I've got a mixture. Now I like Elysian Crimson in any watercolour or any medium at all. Elysian Crimson and cadmium red 50-50, and that's my favourite for mushrooms. It's not too red and it's not too pink, and I think I'm going to use it on these. So I need a clean brush drawn back on a baby wipes. It's barely damp, and I'm going to try and see if you can see the colours. So pick up a little bit, and I'm going to go here across. Now it's always not very easy going across that way, but we did it. Right, again, start again, because your watercolour effect will not happen if you carry on. If you're not bothered about that, then do that. So that wants to be darker, and then take that over there, and that can be paler as well. So that's very soft, that one. Maybe I want it to be a bit stronger for this one, so take a big piece of this and go round to there, and we've got a lovely soft highlight. Come on, Suzanne, get that fly swat. Just because he's lost his hair, he's been naughty. I'm going to take this one back because it's got to be the same way, but the highlight would be the other way in reality. But if you can see what will happen, it will automatically round this lantern. apologise, it's feeding time at the zoo. So what you have to do it every time, you have to clean your brush, but the wonderful thing is there's only a tiny bit of colour in it. Now that was actually a dirty pot, but I'll show you what you waste, which is hardly any. And again, tight Yorkshire lass, all the colour is going on the page. Now I can work stronger colours if I want to, but what I want to show is a lovely soft watercolour effect, and these colours, these watercolours, are very vibrant. Now you have to remember to clean damp brush every time, so we may as well start and go across. So we wanted it a little bit damper, well, not a little bit damper, but a little bit more colour, because it's a slightly bigger space. This one I'm doing now is twice the size as of the first one. So if I want the highlight to finish here, I would have put the same amount, but I wanted that to finish like this one, so I put slightly more on. And that's why doing a photocopy of your page first as a practice, you will get used to the amount of paint you use, you will get used to the damp brush, the paper, you will know how much dampness to use, how much you can get away with. And it's a really good practice. And once you've done that page with a photocopy of your favourite colour page, the second time you do it, it will be so much easier, and you won't ruin a really nice page. So when I can put a shadow on this if I want a bit later, but I should get a really nice watercolour effect that you can see. I'll just do this one. There might not be enough colour here because I don't have much, but I do like the fact I can waste it. Sorry, I can use it all, not wasting any. So that's the first one. Really struggling to pick all this up. But you see how stronger this is, even though. But I've got a beautiful watercolour effect, but it's dry. And so it took 2 years for me to invent watercolouring. I had practice with all sorts. I had different brushes, and it normally works best with a rigger, because any other water brush gushes out water, and we don't want to do that. We want that lovely, soft, steady stream of dampness. So for goodness sake, don't use a water brush, a watercolour water brush, because it'll be far too wet. So I can just go that under there. I can put a shadow under there if I want later. And now we have a highlight on there. It's completely flat, it's completely dry, that's completely flat, completely dry. Now the other thing is I have used all of that. So if I wanted it stronger, I could have made it stronger, but I love the fact that I've got these beautiful orange colours, but I don't have an orange pen. I don't have an orange pen. I have a cadmium red and a cadmium yellow, but they make beautiful oranges. So I don't need to spend £3.90 on an orange. The same with a grey. I've made some gorgeous greys. I've made a medium green, and I've got hooker's green and sap green. But put them together, I've suddenly got 3 greens. There's no magic mix. There's no, oh, I've got to get a little bit of that and a bit more of that. 50-50, 3 strokes of that, 3 strokes of that next to each other, mixed together, you get a nice deep green. The same with this one. I don't have a French ultramarine or an ultramarine, a purple blue, beg your pardon, but I've got dioxazine purple and cerulean blue. Again, the same amount of each squashed next to each other, a little bit of a scratch, you get a beautiful blue. I don't need a blue, but I'll show you how to make that. In fact, I shall zoom out a bit and do a little bit of colour mixing. Bear with me a second. It is feeding time at the zoo here. So that's what I have done. Whoopsie. So far I have my orange and my beautiful greeny grey. It's not actually a bluey grey this time, and I've got my pale pink there. So to be different, when all my other colours were very bright, I've actually made them paler, and that's quite nice because I can now use this differently. One thing I do have to do, because I don't have a memory, is I have to write what these are. So I'm going to write Winsor & Newton watercolour pen, because I will not remember, and I'll stick that out there so when I shut it it'll dry. So really quickly, I originally bought the 6, so I didn't have that one all black. So we'll go back to my favourite thing of making colours. So we have a pale yellow, so we don't have a French ultramarine, so let's do this dioxidine purple. Oh, sorry guys. Dioxidine purple and cerulean blue, 50-50. Oh, that's a bit too blue, that maybe it's a bit too blue. Let's see. Yeah, it's a bit too purple. So, let's see. The dioxidine purple is very, very strong, but it's quite unusual not to have a blue. So, beg your pardon, that's a perfect French ultramarine. And that's a mauve. So we'll do it the other way. We've got a French ultramarine. So we've got French ultramarine. So imagine that's French ultramarine and Elysian crimson, which is a pinky. Clean brush, mix these together, and we have a purple. It's not as good as this because this is a pure pigment. Purples are always a little bit strange to do. Oh, goodness gracious me, Alfie. So this Elysian crimson is very pale, but if we put the Elysian crimson with cerulean blue, you get a very dark purple. That's an aubergine. But the same purple, and we make this into a French ultramarine by adding a bit of purple. We've got purple again. Oops. Thank you. What are you doing? Beg your pardon. Just need rid of my monsters. Come on, out! All of you out. You've just been fed. Out! Come on. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Oh, come on. Good boy. Come on. Can you just get Dex out? Because I think you might want to. Thank you. Come on, Becky. Good boy. sorry about that. The old boy is he's quite old, bless him, and he's not with it. So these are my 6. So you've got to pretend that that is French ultramarine. So let's make the ultramarine again. So it was that one and a half of the purple. So because remember that dioxidine purple is very, very strong. So in theory we should have a French ultramarine, which we have. That's French ultramarine. It's a purple blue. And so we've mixed these two together to get French ultramarine, and now we're going to put Elysian crimson with it. And Elysian crimson and French ultramarine make a bright purple. So we've got a bright purple. It's not really as strong as dioxidine purple because that is a real strong one. I could try to put maybe a little bit more Elysian crimson to it. Now we've got a pinky red. That's a rose pink, that one. Yeah, you see more red. So dioxidine purple is a kind of it's a pigment on its own, and it's very strong. But we can still get some nice purples. But if you want a dull purple, then you want the cool blue. Now you can't put cool blue and a cool cadmium red, because that gives you no purple at all. I guarantee red and blue, no purple whatsoever. Oh, slight purple. But it's a really dull grey purple. But if you use Elysian crimson with cerulean blue, you can do the same amount if you want. You get the mauvey purples. These are the bluey purples. You get the mauves. And if you do, it's difficult to do that one. We're going to make French ultramarine again. So we'll make an ultramarine, which was cerulean blue and half dioxidine purple, again because it's very strong. Mix these two together. We've got that blue purple French ultramarine, and we now put Elysian crimson, bearing in mind this is if you don't have a purple. So we have our magic 6, which is French ultramarine and Elysian crimson, and a little bit you get red, and a lot you get a purple. Now it's slightly off because we've had to make our French ultramarine, but we've taken the purple to a purple blue, and then we've taken it back to a purple. So I hope that made sense. That's all your purples. But as I say, normally, if you wanted, this is a really good mix, this particular one, but I would have ultramarine. I would have French ultramarine. Purples, the bright purples, are always difficult to make. But the greys and the blue greys and the brown greys and all the tertiary colours you make by adding complementary colours to each other, or adding slightly different blues to yellows and greens. So if you've got a green, we'll have a sap green. So this is a pale, almost a pea green, if you want to call it a pea green, sap green. So sap green is grass green. It's a pale green. Now we get that one by using the cold yellow. Oops, you can hardly see it because again it's not very opaque, isn't lemon yellow, and we want cerulean blue, and I wouldn't think we want too much because we want a pale green, and it's pale but it's still a pale green. I haven't mixed much of it, so its opacity isn't good, but the colour's almost there. It's a pale yellow. I don't really want to use too much because I've got greens, but it might be a little bit better to see. And then you might want, oops, so take a bit of that into there. So that's fairly pale. If you put that next to there, it's maybe a little bit too dark, is that? So what I wanted to show was that one with a bit of cad red, and that one with a bit of cad red. So if you put cad red to this, you're going to get an olive. And if you put the cad red to this green, you get a darker olive. More red, you get a browny ochre olive. So really you shouldn't have added red. What we should have added, and I shall do that over here. So we've got red, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, and we make an orange. And then we can put cadmium yellow and cerulean blue. Wash the brush out and we'll make a green. Oops, it's a bit of a dirty green, is that? Because I use the different yellow. So if we put these two together, we've got an olive colour, not olive, the burnt orange colour. So I do the same thing. Sometimes it's a bit difficult colour mixing with little thin watercolours, but I do like them. So we make an orange, and we put that orange with this green, and we get an olive. I get an olive colour. And then if you use a darker, you get a darker olive. The more orange you put into there, now you can put a touch of red if it's an orange red, and you can get an olive. But you can't put Elysian crimson with your green. It'll darken it, but it won't make it olive. It'll just make it dark green because it's a complementary colour. Red is the complementary colour, but orange makes olives. I hope that makes sense. Right, so a little bit of colour mixing. I like this set because I don't like it because it doesn't have French ultramarine, but as I say, we can get away with that because it does have the Oxidine Purple, but it's a traditional, what I would call a traditional colour set. So again, there isn't a colour that isn't difficult to make from these. All the tertiaries, all the olives, all the mauves, all the aubergines, the tangerines, the gambosias, all those gorgeous colours you can make with these. Dead easy, dead easy. And this one isn't burnt umber, this is burnt umber. So, oh, I can't do it because I don't have French ultramarine. I'm going to have to make a French ultramarine. So we want the purple blue. So a purple blue. It can be any purple blue. So let's make a purple blue, which is typically called a French ultramarine or an ultramarine. It's a bit French. Right. If you mix that with that, you get Payne's Grey, and I love that. Now some people make it with black, but lamp black is a grey black. Sorry, lamp black is jet black. This black here is ivory black, is a grey black. It's not as dark and deep, and it's probably an opaque one, where the other one is black, midnight black. But that is a lovely Payne's Grey. But I make mine with burnt umber or Van Dyke brown, very dark, cold brown, with French ultramarine or a purple blue. Will give you some gorgeous greys. And I think I have a video on greys, and you can make hundreds and hundreds of greys. So my colours have disappeared now. So that was a little bit of colour mixing on with the Winsor & Newton set. And again, the 12 set is the same price if you shop about as the individual set of 6. So thank you for watching.